Yo, what is going on, everyone? Your boy Anubis here with a brand new video for you guys today. Hope you're all feeling good. It's feeling good because your boy is back with another video for you guys. Hope you're all having a good day. Hope you're all in good health mentally and physically as we do a reaction video for you guys today from Plantic. I think I pronounced the name. If I pronounced it wrong, Plantic, I apologize. There's a video, how a video game exposed women's football's gender problem. I haven't watched the video yet. It was a video that was posted in my Discord, so I said, hey, I'll just do a reaction to it. Because my reactions are usually just video replies more so than anything else. Instead of having like a 3-paragraph long comment and Plantic's freaking comment section, you can just do a reaction that way. But as I often say when it comes to my reaction videos, always show love to the original uploader. This is their content. The link, the first link, the very first link in the description box below will be the link to this video. So you see right here, this box right here, the literal first link for my video will freaking be this video. Click that video, watch the original video, leave a like and a comment if you want to. So yeah, we'll check this out, see what it's about, see what's going into. Just from the actual like title though, and just seeing like this picture right here, we can tell it's going to be about women in video games, which this is a channel that mostly posts content involving women players in any sport, because women's sports is one of my favorite forms of sport. So yeah, so we're gonna check this out. It's gonna be a lot of pauses, probably gonna speed it up as well because it will be a long video. Like I said, if you want to see it in its full entirety without any edits, without any speeds up on the video, check out the original video, show the original creator some love. Let's get right into this.
Electronic Arts soccer franchise FIFA is introducing female players for the first time.
And FIFA is finally introducing women to their series.
FIFA 16 will feature 12 women's national teams when it launches in North America on September 22nd.
Excited this year to find out that FIFA 16 would have female players actually playable within the game.
When EA Sports announced women's inclusion in FIFA 16 for the first time, the reaction was mixed. Some viewed it as progress, but spending any time online made it clear that the backlash was immediate.
Got our girls. First one, slow down a bit.
Some viewed it.
I have the jersey from that year. It's a Christian Press jersey, but I have the jersey from that year.
Is progress.
Then we have Megan Rapinoe and Celine Laroon in this little bit of a shot.
Spending any time online made it clear that the backlash was immediate. Mean tweets, calls for boycotts, misogynistic memes, the whole lot. Many dismissed it as a short-lived gimmick with no real-world impact. But 10 years later, they would be proven wrong. When Chloe Kelly scored the winning penalty in the Women's Euros for England, countless young fans already knew who she was. Not necessarily from watching her on a pitch or reading the news, but through their consoles. From FIFA 94 to FIFA 15, women didn't exist.
That reminds me of what JFC take. JFC had to take that the growth of women's football is because of FIFA, which I commented saying not necessarily. There's definitely like a lot of men who definitely became more aware of these players via a video game, but women's football was actually growing at a very fast rate well before they were added to the game, and the person who gets the credit for that is actually Alex Morgan. There was a little bit of a rise before Morgan, but it wasn't like a big one. But Alex Morgan's popularity immediately shot women's soccer into a stratosphere it was never in before. And you started seeing her appear in like Sports Illustrated, started seeing her win awards and people didn't really care about. It became a global, it's already a global game when it comes to like the men's side, but women's football became global because of Alex Morgan. And part of why like EA even put women into the game was because they noticed, hey, this Alex Morgan chick is getting a lot of attention. We can put her into our game, put her on a cover, get even more attention to our game, and people might be interested in playing the game or buying the game because they see her on the cover of it. Which, for myself personally, the very first FIFA game I played was FIFA 13, but I never played online. I didn't start playing FC online until FC 24, which is the first year you were allowed to use the women in Ultimate Team. I did not care at all for Ultimate Team, period. I only wanted to play Ultimate Team because you were able to use the women in Ultimate Team. Like if they took women out of Ultimate Team right now, I will stop posting Ultimate Team content. I will stop playing the game because that's why I play the game. But my point while we're in this pause is it's not true that the growth of the sport is because of the video game. Like yes, there's people who didn't know who these players were and now watch them play because of the game. But the growth of the sport for the women's side, at least, I'm not talking about the sport itself, but for the women's side, was before they put women into the game to begin with.
Football's biggest virtual stage. No national teams, no clubs, not even individual recognition. It all changed with FIFA 16. And since then, women in the game have gone from novelty to the norm. Today, the female footballers are a significant part of the FIFA franchise. They are in the packs, ultimate team squads, and on the covers of the game. So how did a game once mocked for adding women's football end up popularizing? And what does it reveal about the evolution of women's football? This is Football Explained. Women's football is not new, and neither are its challenges. The first recorded international football match was played in Edinburgh in 1881. To start with, the female footballers had to play wearing high-heeled boots. Then the crowd constantly booed the players and eventually chased them off the field. And to make matters worse, the media reports were condescending. They called it a failure, and some even claimed it would be the first and last women's football match. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. In fact, several more games were played during that time, and some even drew impressive crowds. But that didn't mean there weren't plenty of efforts to shut it all down. The Scottish FA, for instance, led the charge in the 19th century. They repeatedly discouraged women from playing, insisting football was only a man's game. By 1894, medical professionals were calling for an outright ban on women's participation, claiming it was physically harmful. Then in 1902, the FA issued warnings to its member clubs against hosting women's matches, pushing the women's game further into obscurity, until World War I reignited interest in it. A particular match at Goodison Park saw record crowds, 53,000 to be exact. Finally, in 1921, came the big blow. The ban that pushed women's football into the shadows for decades. Even at its infancy, women's football was not foreign to constant ridicule. So when 100 years later, as EA Sports released FIFA 16, featuring women, the reaction wasn't entirely surprising, but was disappointing. Despite so much progress...
It's kind of funny, you seeing like that kind of take, because it's a bad take. Not very realistic, stadiums are full. Even when just NWSL, like yes, there's teams who don't have great attendance. There are also teams who tend to frequently have packed stadiums. KC, the KC Current, who are the current league winners of the NWSL, their stadium, they have their own. They're one of the few teams in all of women's soccer who have their own dedicated stadium, because a lot of people, they just share stadiums with a college team or share stadiums with another pro team. They have their own stadium, and it's usually always freaking packed. Portland always has a freaking packed stadium. So it's not like, yeah, it's 10 years ago, so maybe 10 years ago things were a bit different from like, things when it comes to like, the Europe side of things. But you always see takes like this where something that's not realistic. You might even see it, I don't know, like I said, I haven't watched the video yet, but you'll probably see a take in here about, women players can't play in the same, team as men players. It's not realistic. It's like, well, first off, it's a video game. Who cares? And they'll be like, well, it makes no sense that a 5'7" woman can do this. This is like, you've been playing this game for how many years? And people like Messi exist, who's only like 5'5", 5'6", 5'7". There's been a number of very, very short players in the game, and it never made you think about anything when it comes to their height. You just played the fucking game. Now that it's a woman, now you want to complain. You're ignoring biology entirely, because again, it's a video game. Things like, well, a man has, stronger bone density and things like that doesn't matter what a video game. You're not actually watching a real sport. You're playing a video game. And if you want to freaking experience a real sport, go play soccer for real. Go find some friends if you can, because some of y'all are antisocial weirdos, and actually go play some football, on a Sunday or a Saturday, or, get good enough to be a part of an actual team. But when it comes to a video game, the realism should not be the first thing you're thinking of with a video game, because fun should be the first thing you're thinking of. And when you're fun, the issue is in the game, the issue is you as a person, because there's something wrong with you mentally to feel like women's presence ruins your fun. Also, at the same time, it comes to realism, you're playing a video game where you can play as dead players. Haley has never played in the same team as Messi. Haley's never played in the same team as Ronaldo. Jarzinho has never played on the same freaking field as Mbappe. But that's not something that you complain about. Not realistic at all, because one of them is live, one of them's not. You can literally start a game and put Sergio Busquets as your keeper if you wanted to. You shouldn't, but you can. That's not very realistic, because he's not gonna play keeper. So the whole thought process is inconsistent, and also it's just people who are trying to use logic to cover up their misogyny.
Surprising, but was disappointing. Despite so much progress across the board, it showed just how far and yet how little public perception of women's football had moved. Some fans called it pointless, others a lot worse. And the proof was in the tweets. A study of social media commentary in Brazil, for example, found that among 86,000 evaluations, over 20% were negative, with the majority of it containing sexist tropes. EA executive Peter Moore had to step in and called the hate misogynistic vitriol, and reminded fans that, quote, we are better than that. Later in the video, we'll look at how hours of playing FIFA helped popularize women footballer names among gamers. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Odoo. With over 45 integrated tools, Odoo is an all-in-one business management platform, and CRM is one of Odoo's most powerful tools available. Imagine you run your local youth football club and need to keep track of your club's sponsorship deals. Odoo CRM will help you manage your entire sales pipeline from first contact during this segment. And now, back to the story. Despite some of the community backlash to adding women in FIFA 16, the media response was largely positive, a sharp contrast to the attitudes of the early 1900s. Wired headlined an article, "This is our game too." ESPN argued that it would help girls feel more welcome in the space. Fast forward 10 years, and many have discovered women's football through the game itself. That's largely thanks to how the game has evolved, and how EA actively brought women footballers into it. For example, take a look at FIFA Ultimate Team. It lets players build their dream squad by collecting virtual cards of footballers and competing online. When women stars were introduced to foot, suddenly millions of players around the world saw their names, stats, and highlights alongside the men's game. This not only boosted visibility for women's football, but also created new fans who first met these players in-game before watching them on the pitch. In many ways, the game became a bridge, turning gaming recognition into real-world support for the women's game.
When it first came
The thing about that, as before, there's people who think that the reason why the sport itself grew is because of the game. No, that's not what a sport grew. But it has gained some viewers through the game, and that happens for all video games. There's people who never really watched basketball, but because they play 2K, they decide, hey, I'm going to go watch an actual Lakers game. People who play Madden and go, hey, I'll go watch an actual NFL game, things like that. There's people who will play Fight Night or UFC 5 or whatever, and decide to actually go watch the sport because now they're interested because they played the game. Sometimes games become free for like a weekend, and that's when they first start playing it and get their experience that way, and then it makes them become interested in just figuring things out. At the same time, when it comes to, as I said before, there's people who play the games and start to be interested in the sport. There's also people who unfortunately, because of these games, they watch. They go to the IGs of some of these ladies, and instead of respecting them for the athletes that they are, they just view them as an object of sexual desire.
It was sort of, all right, I'm going to try her, I'm going to see. And I remember it was Bon Matty, of course, is a world-renowned star anyway in the women's game. She was incredible for us. But
as the game grew in popularity, influencers and streamers amplified its reach, creating a positive feedback loop that boosted both the sport and the women footballers featured in it. The proof, yet again, was on social media.
Great, honestly, it's really good. There was a moment this year where I packed Ella Toon about 20 times, posted it on Instagram, and she reacted to it, laughed at it. And it was great because it shows there's harmony between the game and the women's game as well, because a lot of the women's players actually play the game, which is great to see.
Or take Trinity Rodman,
it is true. Caroline Nicole plays FC quite a bit, not a lot. Like there's guys like Alfonso Davis who actually does like FC streams, but every now and then Caroline Nicole, who plays for Brazil national team, plays for Manchester City, also played in the USL. She'll post the reels of her playing FC. Croy Bethune, who's Rodman's teammate for the Spirit, sometimes does Twitch streams playing FC. There's a lot of women who play the sport because guess what? Women play video games too. So, and if you love a sport, like playing it, you might be like, I also want to play the games too because I like gaming. I play the sport. I want to be able to see myself in the video games. I want to be able to see my teammates in the video game. It happens in wrestling too. There's women in wrestling who just love the idea of to play with the I'm trying to purpose the freaking words here because y'all can be a little weird. Who like using their own wrestlers in the games and makes them happy. It's like getting an action figure too. They get an action figure, even though people don't really play with those anymore. It's a sense of pride. Like I've come this far from wrestling in bingo halls to I now have an action figure. I've come this far from being someone who played recreational summer camp soccer to being in the biggest soccer game in the world. There's a level of prestige and pride that comes with that.
For the US women's national team, her TikTok videos are now filled with comments from fans who can't get enough of her card in the game. EA Sports FC has brought players like Rodman into the spotlight, into feeds that once overlooked them, making it completely normal for a woman to be the card that saves your weekend league. FC24 introduced women's icons and heroes for the first time, with names like Mia Hamm, Kelly Smith, and Hamare Sawa finally getting their due. But for a whole generation of younger fans, this was the first time they were even hearing about them. And even current players from nations not traditionally seen as football powerhouses, such as Malawi or Haiti, are now known to fans around the world. And EA knew exactly what they were doing. They saw the numbers early and understood where it was all heading. The timing of the FIFA 16 release was perfect. The 2015 Women's World Cup in Canada had just set records. 1.35 million fans in stadiums and 750 million viewers worldwide. Interest in women's football was peaking, and FIFA 16 rode that wave directly into living rooms and screens. Even though women rarely identified as gamers, a Pew Research survey in 2015 showed 50% of men and 48% of women play video games. So the audience was already there, just not acknowledged. And when EA announced FIFA 16 would include women...
There's an interesting stat to add to that. That was an older stat. The stat now, there's more women in America playing video games than men. 52% of women in America are playing video games.
national teams, it was hitting the ground running. A step towards equality, sure, but also a smart business move. And as growth among male players had flattened, adding women opened an entirely new market. Let's look at the numbers a little deeper. At its launch, it sold 2.7 million copies in its first week and 6.9 million by year end, the second best-selling game of 2015. Players logged 300 million matches and 1.5 billion hours within 16 days. The reveal trailer, which by the way featured names like Alex Morgan and Sidney LaRue, passed 1 million views in 24 hours. EA had managed to turn the release into a cultural moment. Over the following decade, the women's game exploded commercially. The 2023 World Cup drew over 2 billion viewers, almost double 2019. Average stadium attendance rose 29%. Sponsorship revenue hit $308 million, up more than 150%. In leagues, the WSL's Barclays deal tripled to £30 million, and then NWSL signed a $240 million broadcast contract, roughly 40 times larger than its old one. Globally, women's sports revenue nearly doubled.
That was actually like a recent one too when it comes to the NWSL's contract. It's actually like a recent contract that they signed, because originally the NWSL would do live streams of their games on YouTube and Twitch. Actually used to do watch along streams of the games on Twitch for like a year or two, because they actually allowed you to. You were allowed to, you know, just have the actual live games on your own Twitch feed and just watch it. But you can't do it anymore because, you know, they have this contract that they have right there, where they're with ESPN and Paramount, so you can't rebroadcast ESPN and Paramount games because you'll get in trouble. So, you know, that's kind of like the downside to it, but, you know, I'm not really mad, because it's like, yo, they're getting paid. I'm happy that they got that contract on. I hope they get even more in the future. So just a little nugget in there about, you know, how, you know, things were going for a little bit for, you know, some of these leagues. Even like to this day, even though WSL doesn't show live games on YouTube, WSL does show live games on YouTube. Not all their games, but some of their games are broadcast live on YouTube.
40 times larger than its old one. Globally, women's sports revenue nearly doubled from $981 million in 2023 to $1.88 billion in 2024, the fastest growth in sport. Now, to say that all of this was caused by FIFA 16 alone would be an exaggeration. There are multiple factors at play, but what FIFA 16 did do was light the first spark. It was part of a broader shift, the normalization of women's football in mainstream culture. Before FIFA 16, no major football game featured women's teams. After it, others followed. By FIFA 23, EA added full women's leagues, career modes, and even mixed ultimate teams. From EA's side, the logic was simple. More diversity means more players, and more players means more revenue. Ultimate Team now brings over $1.6 billion a year.
That's the big thing for EA's side. EA doesn't really care about our opinions on women or our opinions on, you know, intergendered freaking ultimate teams. They care about revenue. They care about what's making money. And they've been making more money every single year, and their competition also sees that. We just saw NBA 2K add women to their, you know, My Career mode when it comes to, like, you know, the park. Like before, there was like the W, so you can like make it was like a separate version of My Career where you can play as like a women player. You couldn't play women players, you know, against men. You couldn't play them in the park. Whereas now you can. Part of that is because Ultimate Team has been successful with having women, you know, in the games. NHL has also done the same thing, but yet NHL, you know, is part of EA, so it's an easier transition. But just seeing like these other sport games, including 2K, copy the idea, just tells you how much more, you know, the numbers are showing that it's a positive thing over a negative thing. You might see comment sections that tries to be negative, but you gotta always remember this when it comes to like the internet. The vocal majority is usually the actual minority of a community, because the actual majority are very, very busy playing the games or enjoying themselves. They don't really have the time to go be negative on the internet. Positive people don't go looking to be negative. Whereas people who are negative and miserable, that's all they have time to do, is just be more negative, be more miserable.
A significant portion of which involves women's footballers. There are many that dismiss progress like this when it features top-line revenue numbers, but the net positive can't be ignored. Representation builds visibility. Visibility creates fandom, and fandom drives business. Win, win, win.
That's funny. It's actually like a recent picture, but it didn't like really age well. This picture right here. This is actually like a recent image. This is from S25 towards the end of the year when they added the new jerseys to the game. Didn't really age too well because over here Oshwala and ended up going to the Saudi League, which isn't in the game. The men's team's in the game, but the Saudi League, women's league isn't in the game, which I think will actually be changing. I think there's people who joke that the Saudi PIF, you know, buying EA is going to result in them removing women from the game. I don't think that's the case. I think what's actually more likely to happen is they'll want their own leagues added to the game. So you'll see the Saudi government be like, hey, can you add our women's league to the game? So we'll probably see Oshwala again and some of the other, you know, ladies who play for the Saudi League teams. But I just saw this image, was like, oh look, Oshwala, who doesn't play for that team anymore and isn't even in the game technically because, you know, they don't have the rights to the league she plays in.
Visibility creates fandom, and fandom drives business. Win, win, win. Most people don't immediately think of a video game as shaping women's football, but FIFA 16 did just that. When the world's biggest football game finally included women, it wasn't catching up to reality, it was shaping it, and it was all done through one controller at a time.
How EAFC shone an important light on the women's game. Women's football is growing rapidly, and the players are starting to get a lot more.
And I'm actually glad to see this video, and thanks to Spartan / Cleveland for sending this video into the Discord. Because a lot of times when you see like videos like this that tries to like talk about women's football, it tends to be like very fence city, where it's like they're not really trying to be positive or negative, they're trying to like be in between, or it just goes full into like just being negative, or trying to like point out potential negatives. I think the overall thing when it comes to the gender problem is it only exists on the internet. Like for the most part, people don't necessarily care, especially when it comes to like, first world countries. People tend to just not really care. And I say don't care, I mean, they'll see a woman on the screen and just be like, okay, it's one on the screen. We've seen a woman on screens all our lives. It's nothing new. But there's like other places where like, they're still a little bit behind in social justice and social politics, to where, the idea of women being president in a video game, isn't something that they necessarily like. So I'm like looking at the comments as I said before, show love to the original video. Like I said, the link to the video will be in the description box below. I do want to like peek the comments a little bit just to see how things are going over here. And one of the things I saw was this right here, that I'm from Malawi and our women's national team compete way better on the international stage than the men's team, and the same with individual players. So we really appreciate them. This actually is very, very similar to America. The American men team sucks. And through the men team sucking, a lot of men and women tend to like favor the women's national team more and watch the women's national team more because they want to see success. America's a very success-driven country when it comes to sports. We want to see people who are winning. That's why the teams who are the most popular are the ones who win the most. The Lakers, the Celtics, the Cowboys during the 90s, the Packers, the Steelers. All these teams are teams who are franchises known for succeeding because Americans love success. So when the men's team sucks, but the women's team is, literally like the women's team for the United States is literally the benchmark of women's football. Not one of, they're just the benchmark. Every person who of, the Puteas of the world, the Bamontes of the world, the Russos of the world, they all looked up to Mia Hamm and Chastain. Like they looked up to American players. They went to college in America. Alessia Russo, who was one of the best players in England, she went to college and played college football at North Carolina, University of North Carolina. So like, even when it comes to like just the leagues, how the Premier League is considered to be, the best league in men's football, the NWSL is viewed as the best league in women's football. Is viewed as like, the most intense, most physical, demanding, and hardest league to play in. So there's a bit of like I guess like when I see this comment, it's like you can relate with that, because it's kind of the same thing when it comes to America. It's like, yeah, the women are all great, but the dudes suck. So, a lot of people just tend to lean to watching women's soccer over men's soccer. Another situation with that kind of sentiment right here. Unironically, I support my local women's team over my local MLS team. The local MLS team is probably not very good. Again, we like success. Then, of course, you do have, your losers like, oh, you like women because you're liberal. The usual, oh, anything progressive must be liberal. Turn it into like a political situation. You got, right here, they are shoved down our throats. So like there's some of the usual pitiful, pathetic losers that that are going to leave comments, but for the most part, I think it was a great thing and I have fun with it. At the end of the day, it's a video game. The whole thought process between the video games is to have fun. How I have fun is building women's squads. How I have fun is building my dream team. My dream team is putting all my favorite players into one team, whether it's men or women. I want to have my team's going to have Messi in it, going to have Sophia Wilson in it, it's going to have Casillas in it, it's going to have Jay Revere in it. Like that's, my brain just wants to make a team of my favorite players that I grew up watching or watch now. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. Catch you guys on next one. Be your boy, AnubisArchangel. I'll see you guys when I see you guys. I'm out of here. Deuces.